Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to AusBooks. This is just me ranting about Australian books, and we're still in the very early days of the First Fleet. We still haven't crawled out the 1700s yet because we're talking about a very interesting book, something we haven't really talked about much so far, and that is Memorandums here by James Martin. Oh, yeah, James Martin. He was a convict, and his memorandums are the only source of the only accounts we have from a convict during the First Fleet, which is very interesting to think. We may have some other ones, I think, but at least confirmed that were convicts. James is the only one here. For those who don't know who James Martin is, I'll give you some details about him because they call him his early convict life wasn't as interesting as he nearly pulled off actually one of the greatest escapes ever in Australian history. We'll get to that later. But for those who don't know, James Martin, when he was roughly 26, so in 1786, he was transported to Australia to serve a 7-year sentence because he was stealing. He stole 11 screw bolts and some other stuff, which added up to a value of £11. And they're like, no, get out of here, get out of England, you're going to Australia. And so he was shipped, and he talks about in these journals. But what gets really interesting, again, he was on the ship Charlotte, so he may have saw John White just casually. And so the journal's pretty much documenting that. But what really makes this interesting, what really makes James Martin memorable, is because in 1791, right, him, his wife, and his 2 kids, and plus another bunch of convicts, I think there was 11 of them altogether. They all stole a fishing boat from Sydney Harbour and decided to sail through the Pacific Ocean back to England, because that's what you do. There was the 2 kids were infants, and they had little food, and they were out there for I think 69 days, and across 3,000 miles of water, which is absolutely insane. They did actually get to England. They posed as fisher people and all that stuff, people gone fishing, but they got realized. And of the 11 people that escaped on that journey, only 6 lived. Both their kids died, James and Mary's. 4 convicts and 2 children, pretty much. And the survivors were again rearrested, but there was a big pardon given, and there was a big discharge because they were really sympathetic because of what these people went through. It was originally going to be that they were held in prison for a year jail while their service was determined, and that's where James got the idea to get someone to write down his life, his journey in Australia, and then doing his big escape, and that's how we have the memorandums here. And this was published a bit later on, but eventually again it was cleared. Everyone went free. And we have no clue what happened to James after that, or Mary, or the other survivors. We have no clue. That's pretty much a summary of what James went through, which is absolutely insane. And this is just him talking about it, really. I do recommend it. I think it's very interesting. It very much reminds me of William Buckley, but I think William Buckley's a bit more interesting than James Martin. I feel I'm glad this exists. I'm glad someone, because this edition has the original manuscripts, and then the text of it next to it, which is really good. I would love for someone to turn this into a general history book. Give it 400 pages. Just make it into a history book. I think that'd be really great instead of just having the one manuscript of what happened. Now that we the trial's done and we know what happened ish, I think that'd be really good. A really thrilling adventure novel of escaping colonies. And because James was actually him and his crew was the first group of convicts to escape Australia, which is really interesting because most of the time they would just run into the bush and die, and then they'd find their bodies weeks or days or ever long later. But James was like, nah, we're going to go back through the Pacific Ocean, literally. About 8 months just to get to Australia wasn't, brutal enough. Let's go try doing it back ourselves on a small fishing boat. They had like no supplies, and it's sad that two infants died along the way that were dragged into this. But yeah, it's a weird recommend. I feel like because there's the possibility for a great riveting account of James's escape and just his life. I think a biography of him would be incredible. But in saying that, I know it would be hard to do because we don't know that much about James really, because a lot of convicts, the information convicts gave were a lot of times made up and unreliable just because they lied really about their situations. But yeah, it's a weird book today we're talking about, but I recommend it. I think it's a very interesting story. I think it's good if you get just the wiki page at first, just to get the idea before you go into something that's obviously so biased. So you have like the facts going on. But James is a fine writer. You're not going to be blown away by the literariness of his manuscript here. And someone wrote this from while he was in prison. In that 1 year, and yeah, that's I don't know what to say about this. It's very fine. I know why people would really like this, because again, it's so interesting, but I feel like it just needs someone to blow the dust off it and do a really great again, history book about it. I think it would be incredible and a very interesting one to teach because again, crazy stuff happens. And yeah, that's your AusBook for today, the Memorandums by James Martin. Let me know what you think if you've read it, and we'll move on tomorrow in the next AusBooks. Who knows, maybe we'll be done with the First Fleet era soon. I honestly don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I will see you next time.